Beautiful. All right, welcome in to
Yeah,
the
baby.
No Fuse Show. This is episode 4, featuring a gentleman I met last year. Huge beauty, in my opinion, as most of the guests are. Huge endurance guy. Love his Instagram handle. And this is Anthony Criscuolo. Just learned how to say that pre-show. How you doing, my friend?
What's going on, man? How you been?
You know what? I've been enjoying it. It's been an interesting time, interesting period, but been adapting well. So happy to have you here, and looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, buddy. And I just got to tell you, you are the reason why I do all this nonsense. I love going to these races and doing all this stuff, and it's all about the people. I mean, I miss being a meathead at the gym and just lifting like a psychopath, but being able to do these like psycho events and meeting people like you is the whole reason I do it.
Yes.
100%. I just want to be ready so some moron could say, "Hey, you want to go run 40 miles?" Yeah, sure. Let's just go. Yeah, I'll go do
Let me
it.
grab my shoes.
Exactly. It's like, can we do it Friday so I could drop the kids off at school and I'll be at your house? Done. It's
See,
awesome.
and you know what? That's a perfect place to start because I have found, because you and I are very similar, and I mean, it's the same thing for me, meeting people like you, and that sense of community when you end up at these events is so cool, and just to realize that there's people around the world, different ages, different backstories, all these things, but they're all driving toward that same goal. So one thing I've been asking a few people, especially people that have been training, with all these events being canceled and or postponed, how have you found like training essentially for no upcoming event or a virtual event?
I'm lucky because I have a full gym in my house and I'm a psycho. So if I don't work out and do something, I go a little insane.
Yeah.
So I've always been working out, but I had a 30-hour event in June that wasn't canceled. So I trained for it up until April, assumed it was going to be canceled and stopped running.
Yeah.
Just stopped running because I was like,
Full
I can't
stop.
take. Yeah, because my wife was home with the kids, and I felt bad because I still had to work and still am working through this whole thing.
Yep.
So I felt bad on my days off when the kids would have normally been at school for me to be like, all right, I'm gonna go run for 6 hours in the woods, babe. I know you've been home all week losing your mind with these kids. So I just started lifting more, and then it was, I don't know, the race was the end of June, and I don't know, maybe the end of May, beginning of June, I got the email, oh, the race is still on, because there was only like 50 people.
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, oh shit. So it's like, now I gotta stop running. So you know what? So I did that. I wanted to do 100. I only got 53 miles, but it was one of those. I was running with this woman that I met at a 50K that I did a few months earlier, and she was hustling through the whole thing. Like, she was training the entire time. She doesn't have any kids at home, so she just was doing her thing, and she busted her ankle.
Oof.
The first lap at night, there's a stupid little plank bridge, and she just tripped off
Yeah.
it because it was raining the whole time.
Yeah.
And she did that lap and another lap, and then she called it
Oh.
quits. And then like my mind was just gone, and I'm like, you know what? F this. I didn't even care. The good thing was I was like, I did 53 miles basically on nothing. I felt
Yeah.
great. 3 days later, like I was back out running again. So I wasn't too worried about it. And then I immediately signed up for another 30-hour race in November. So that's the goal. That's where my buckle is. Plus, I just had a race yesterday. I have another one this coming Saturday.
Yeah.
And then I have a 9-hour one in September. So I'm lucky
Damn.
because if you sign up for wacky stuff, there's less people.
True.
So you could kind of, like on paper, if the race director's pretty good, show where it's socially distanced and you're not going to be
Yes.
around people. And if you're like me and got lost in a very easy closed loop run yesterday and end up on the street, you're not going to be around anybody. So I'm lucky in that respect. Yeah. If you see my Garmin, you'll see like it's just a loop.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden there's this big ass loop that goes around. Like, what the
Yeah.
hell were you doing? Yeah, I followed the wrong trail. It's
I mean, you know what? That's hilarious because last year, the farthest I've done in one go at 53 miles, that's amazing for those who run on the metric system. That's got to be, I mean,
it's
50's
almost
80.
100K.
50's 80 is
100K would have been 62, so we're almost
62 would have been. Yeah, because the way I do it is like 50's basically 80. Because the 5 times 6, plus all the decimal places. So it's about 80, yeah, and then an extra 3 at 6. So yeah, you're looking at 78, yeah, almost 80. Or sorry, almost 90. What would be almost 90 kilometers? Yeah, that's insane. But even last year, it's hilarious that you say like they mentioned getting lost thing, and it's just a bit of an aside. But first time I did the 50K, I'm actually wearing the shirt, oddly enough. River Valley Revenge is what it's called, so shout out to them. And I did the 50K last year, and they had a 50K and a 100K loop, and they had one map. and there was only like 2 sections where it overlapped. But this was a very like grassroots, as most of the endurance events are, where yeah, if you make one wrong turn, especially in the River Valley in Edmonton, like you're either going to start heading the opposite direction, which is what myself and the guy I was running with did. So we're going back the other way, and I'm like, man, we're heading toward downtown. I'm pretty sure we need to be going southwest, and this is not right. And but we're already a kilometer into like running through the trails and uphill. And he looks at me, he's like, yeah, I think we're going the wrong way. So we tacked on an extra 2 kilometers there. And then the second point it intersects is there's this little 3.5K loop, like just this baby loop through these dirt bike trails that is added on to the 100K course to make sure that it's 100. But again, fork in the road. If you don't know where you're going, there's no signage. It's just local knowledge. Like you're supposed to know if you're in the 50K, you get to Terwilliger Bridge, you go left. If you're in the 100K, you go right. Apparently that's simple. We botched it again. So we went right.
If I don't know what I'm doing, I always turn right. So I would have turned right anyway. I'd be like,
well,
just go right.
You know what? And there was the only place there was an arrow. And I was like, it's got to be right. So now we're going right. And same thing. I'm looking at a Fitbit at the time. And I'm like, okay, I'm at 45. I'm pretty sure we're farther than 5 kilometers out. But I don't know the River Valley that well on the west side of the city. So we'll see. So sure enough, I go in about 1 kilometer and they're like, nope, wrong way. Because I saw the same guy come in and out at a different time. So I turn around. Now I'm going up the hill, but now I'm feeling good because I'm like, okay, we got to be within 4 or 5. This lady, unbeknownst to me, had ran the same race last year. She comes down the hill and she's like, oh, you running the River Valley Revenge? So I'm going uphill. I'm 40K in, so I'm not going fast at all. And I was like, yeah, just getting ready to finish up here. And she says, no, you're not. And I said, excuse me? She goes, River Valley Revenge? I said, yeah. She said, oh, I did this last year. I said, and? She's like, oh, you got at least another 7 or 8 home. And I was like, you're kidding me. She's like, what do you think? I was like, I thought I got about half that. And sure enough, like got done the race and I was we did about 57. That's what the Fitbit said by the end of the day. And same thing. It's just like, well, am I upset? No, because I'm getting more miles in. But, at the end of the day, I was trying to do 50.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And what killed me with yesterday was it was a 2-mile loop because we had a storm last week or 2 weeks ago at this point. So we had to clear some stuff up and he redid the course, but it was well signed. Yeah. It was well marked. It was everything, but there's a bunch of different trails.
And sorry, just let the folks know at home, you're in Connecticut. Is this where?
Yeah, I'm in Connecticut. And we have this crazy New England weather. It was 90 degrees and then it's 40 degrees. And then there's, the sun's out and then we have, 300 trees all around us falling because it rains too hard. It's a pain in the ass. But the course, it was marked perfect. It was fine. It was like a 2-mile loop. It was pretty fast. It was a hot day, so it was a slow day, but the course was fast. It was like my 5th loop, but I was feeling good. I put my head down. I'm starting to just run. I passed a couple people. Yeah, I never took a left. So, but I'm running, and it didn't look too familiar, but it's the woods. I'm like, I don't know, whatever.
Yes.
I see this lady running behind me. So I'm like, oh, I must be going the right spot because this lady, she's not going to be lost. Meanwhile, I get to the end of the trail, and I'm like, oh, shit. And I see, like, the road, and I looked at her. She's like, oh, I was following you. So I made the decision. I was like, well, let's run on the road to get back to the entrance.
Yeah.
Instead of go back in the woods. Because I only cared about the miles. I was like, I'm here to run 6 hours. I'm not worried about the official standings. I was like, I got to get miles in and run anyway. I was like, this will be easier to get us where we want to go. I was like, if we turn back, I was like, I have no idea where we're going to have to turn to get back on the road.
Yeah.
Like, so that was a mess. Yeah, I felt bad for her. She had no water with her. We're running through sprinklers. 52-year-old lady from Massachusetts.
Nice.
She's like, oh, you look like you know what you're doing. I'm like, I don't. I'm fooling everybody. It's not really.
You're like I agree. I look like I know what I'm doing, but I'm right there with you in this war, and we're both lost. So let's just let's two-person team.
She put her GPS. So then she puts her GPS on to get back to her car. Like, I don't have my phone on me. And we're halfway there and her phone dies. So now she's freaking out because she doesn't trust me when I say, oh, I actually know where I'm going. She got lost on a closed loop course, you moron. But I did know because, like, I know, like, the area because I drove there. But there was no reason for her to believe me. Like, it was bad. She was like, we could get a ride back. She was, like, contemplating jumping in, like, some like, guy's pool. I was like, give me a minute. I was like, we got to run anyway.
Yes.
We have to make up the miles. Neither one of us were looking at podium. So if it shows we only ran like 15 miles instead of 20 miles, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? But it was hot out there.
But it's interesting that you have that perspective, right? Because the more you do these events, I find, and this was a big reason I wanted to have you on, is like your ability to breathe in those moments and
Oh
relax
yeah.
and just and reset, because you just as easily, you could have been in like warthog mode in the woods going, I'll just turn around. And now you're going back the other way in the place you just got lost out of. And then the lady's still with you. And now you're like, oh, she's actually following me. Like she's every step I take, she's taking. But the ability to just say, and especially when people around you're like, hey, let's just get a ride back in, or let's find, you're like, no, a goal is the miles. It's not about
That's
the
what I
loop.
go.
It's about
Mhm.
start line, finish line. And I'm here, like, it's going to be mission accomplished as long as I can get this done, no matter what it looks like. But yeah, like, I mean, it any better than anybody. I think like that mentality is why we do this.
Oh, 100%. Because it makes nothing else you do hard. Like some people would really
Yes.
be freaking out. Like, and I could see her freaking out a little bit because she's lost. I mean, she's not even from the state, so
Yeah.
she has no idea. And then
Yes.
again, she's followed me, who's like that stupid to get lost anyway. So I get it. But I was like, what's the big deal? I was like, you're here to run, right? She's like, yeah. I was like, well, we're still running. You just want to get the miles in, right? Yeah. Did you think you were going to place? No. I was like, so what's the difference? I go, this is going to be much funnier. It's like now we have like an extra story. I
Yes.
was like,
Yeah.
you could have just said you ran around in the woods, but now you have this little extra half hour that you could talk about that was a lot funnier. I was like, by the time we get back, pizza will be there anyway, so it'll be fine. So it was no big deal. So I calmed her down and did it. But you do make a good point. Doing this stuff makes your life 1,000 times easier. Like there's nothing that really frazzles me in real life because I'm like, I don't know, like I've run 50 miles and 30 miles, which is not a lot to some people. To some people, it's more than they'll ever do. But you
Yes.
do this
Yes.
stuff in these crazy environments. Like I almost passed out when we were doing the Vermont event. Like they were going to medically pull me off the course. That girl Kendra saved my life because she
Yeah.
like stayed with me. I was like physically passing out on my poles, and everybody kept coming up. Like it didn't even dawn on me to stop. I'm like, I'll just be fine. But the guy looked at me. He's like, you're not doing another lap tonight. But whatever I'm gonna do in my real life is 1,000 times easier than that. My
Yes.
resting heartbeat at that point was 200. I thought my heart was gonna explode. I probably had a little bit of hypothermia. I couldn't get warm. I took the hottest shower ever where it burned my skin. I was still freezing.
Yeah.
Like my regular day, like, oh, it rained as I walked out of my car going to work. Like, who gives a shit? Like, it's not a
Yes.
big deal.
Yes.
Do all this nonsense. Like, ask Kevin. I did the first time I made him do a 50K with me. It was pouring rain the whole day. He's like,
That
God, the
was
rest
that
of
was
your
one of
life,
my favorite
the
stories. I'm
rest of your
pretty
life won't.
sure that was like how I met you, because I asked you guys. I remember sitting down there and I
Yeah.
asked, and you guys asked me, and we asked each other like, "Hey, what kind of events have you done before this?" I was like, "Oh, some team trail races back home." And then, yeah, you two are like, yeah, I remember Kevin looking at me. He's like, "Yeah, this guy dragged me to some ultra, just to him and I doing this loop over and over." So that's basically how we got introduced to this.
Pretty much. And then obviously I dragged him to Everest. And now he's training for something. He's trying to do
Yes.
48K next Friday for the Covenant House. I mean, he's down in Florida. But I was like, I'll run it with you. I was like, I'm gonna do it over 2 days because
Yep.
I have an event Saturday. I was like, well, I got 6 hours. I have to run anyway. I was
Yeah.
like, so I'll just run it with you. And then he goes back and forth and we yell at each other on our garden. He's got Brent coaching him. That kid's a warrior. I love him. I make fun of him
he
all the time because
he is
he's
just,
a
well, he's such
psychopath.
an everyday savage. Like
Oh, he totally is.
he's so unassuming. Like if you lined up the three of us, it's just literally you, me, and him, and just put us side by side and say, okay, which one of these is probably going to tap out first? Which one of these looks like the most frail or fragile?
You're pointing to him.
I think the majority would go to him, but then you're out there with him, you're like, oh no,
Nope.
this guy's he's got the chip. He's got the
Yep.
chip.
I'm already passed out and he's still going. He's like, oh, I'm like, I don't know how you keep moving. Like, I just break his butt. I think it's because he's so light. He could just keep going. I'm still like a fat kid, so it takes a lot more. But yeah, that kid's a beast. He just doesn't stop going. Now he's got me into this thing. I was watching the World's Toughest Race on Amazon
With
Prime.
yeah, Bear Grylls.
Challenge. Yes, you need to watch it. I'm obsessed with it. He watched one episode. He's like, oh, I think I could do it. Like, really, dude? Really?
I
So it's like,
I follow a couple of one of the athletes who's a big Spartan racer who
yeah,
lives in
Ryan
Ontario.
Atkins.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a beast. I've been obsessed with that kid for years. But he pisses me off though, because he's like superhuman. Like you see what he does, you're like, all right, so discount it. Like he's not human.
But also though, again though, because and this is interesting too, and this I want to get your perspective on, because I mean, all the sports came back and this kind of ties into it, but I found myself like right now, we live in this split level house. My dad lives upstairs. I have the full basement suite. and it's great. But he'll come down sometimes and watch sports, and then we just start talking, right? And it's if there was honestly a place that him and I would thrive, it would be in New England, because we're just plugging into all the sports in some way, shape, or form, have a really good idea of how things are going. So we're watching the hockey game, and Connor's flying around everybody, Connor McDavid, the guy. And it came down to the debate of, why do you think he's that much better than the next best player? Is it genetics, or is it like work ethic? And my dad took the side of genetics, and I took the side of work ethic, because that's the mentality we have, right? And like the Ryan Atkins. So when I see him, like he's straight up just putting in miles some days. Like he'll just be like, yeah, I'm doing a 3-day hike. And I'm like, again, like if people knew what a 3-day hike encounters, especially if you're carrying your own gear, like you got 80 pounds of food and gear on your back, and you're just, I mean, I don't know if you've ever researched Alberta. You head out to Jasper or Banff or any of the mountain towns, and you just pick a 3-day hike.
Yeah, I got a buddy that goes up there once a year to go with one of his friends to go hunting for whatever the hell monsters you have in the woods there.
Plenty.
I always
depending on where you're at.
Because he's not. I mean, like he's not in shape. And I'm like, why aren't you like Cam Hanes running around so you can be in shape for this stuff? I was like, I can't shoot a bow and arrow. I was like, but I'd be fine out in the woods. But anyway, he showed me these pictures. I was like, that's like where the Spartan races are. I was like, this is what it looks like. They make you climb mountains and shit. I go, what are you doing? So yeah, it looks like fun. But yeah, Ryan's a beast. I think he's got a little bit of both. I think he's got the tool and the work ethic. Like, I don't know that I could do what he does with whatever physical limitations I have, but also, I wasted my 20s drinking like, an idiot and being a party animal, because that was more fun. So maybe had I started this 20 years ago, by the time I'm almost 40, where I'm at now, I could probably be him or like something like that. But I'm a big like work ethic. Like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, they were more talented than anybody else, but they were still the first people to show up and the last people to leave, no matter what. So that's going to beat them anyway. LeBron James, who I even hate putting him in the same conversation because I'm such an MJ guy, but it's the same thing. It's he's still there. I mean, he's a total beast, so he's physically more gifted than anybody.
I know,
but he still puts in the reps. So like you get a little bit of both. Whereas on the football end, like you look at like a Gronk, he's more physically gifted than anybody, but he never takes care of himself. That's why he's always injured. Tony Gonzalez took care of himself better than anybody. And if he was on a better team, he'd probably have 5 rings too. You know what I mean? So it's like you got to put the reps in, and you got to have that. And you can't rely on talent. You're almost a little bit better to have a little bit less talent than the top guy, because you're constantly trying to outwork them. But you got to do the work. Like you're out there, like you did that Vermont event. You could have easily taken like a 10-hour nap. But you're like, nope, I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah.
Easily, without even thinking about it. Like it wasn't even on your radar to stop.
I mean, you know what? Let's talk about that for a little bit, because honestly, I mean, besides the people that I've hung out with and kind of told about the event, this would be better because I mean, you were there, and like, one of my favorite moments was like everybody's in that big hall. We're listening to the speakers, and all you can see in the windows behind is blowing snow.
Oh yeah,
gray skies, and in my head, I'm going, oh, I'll be fine. This is still beautiful for October. It just looks a little bit more like December out there. And if it's above 0 or what would be, I guess, 36 in Fahrenheit, like I'm going to be gold. But just seeing like everybody getting ready for that, the stories that unfolded, like, just tell me about your experience. Like after it was all said and done, obviously we shot the breeze over some beers after in the 409 boys or whatever room number we were by the end of ever having a good time, but take me through a few of your highlights or kind of what you learned from this event.
Well, the first thing was I was like, I'm looking at the snow. I was like, I don't care. Like, I don't mind the cold. All I thought was like, it might be slipperier, so I'll have to work on that because my footwork's always terrible. But I'm thinking it's a better story. Who cares?
Yes.
You know what I mean? And
I thought it was.
I met somebody new every single time up that mountain. I'm still friends with like a lot of them on like whether it's Instagram or whatever.
Yep.
And I've learned that my superpower is I don't shut up. So when some people are like dying up there, they're like, please just keep talking. Like some people really like they weren't miserable, but I don't know that they enjoy the suffering the way we do.
Yes. We seek the pain.
Yeah. So like I was fine, like half dead on the mountain, but some people were really struggling. So they're like, no, just keep talking, whatever. So meeting some of those people was pretty awesome. Like I said, I think it was like my 9th one up or 10th. I forgot what I ended up with that first night, but I'm like passing out. I'm dizzy. And I was like, well, I just got like 7 more of these and I'll be fine. And then Kendra's like, no, you're not doing it. And like, I saw her out of the corner of my eye, like running up and like going to get like a medical guy or something.
Yeah.
All I kept hearing was, what you playing, Anthony? What are you doing? And I'm like, how do they know my name? I forgot like the bib had. Like,
yeah.
How do they know who I am? But the whole time I was like, I finally felt like really tested. It was exactly what I wanted to do. You know, I got to talk to Jesse a little bit, and I'm such a big fanboy of him because he's like such a cool dude. I talked to Chad for a little bit. I did like a loop with him and Charlie, who's hysterical.
Yeah.
It's almost fun. Like I look at him and I'm like, you'd be the perfect guy to have a beer with. Too bad he'd end up, doing crack afterwards and as a result. But he's like the perfect guy. Like you'd want to go have 3 or 4 beers with him and see where your night ends up.
Yes.
You'll end up in jail or whatever. But
yeah,
doing that event, I would do all of them if I could afford it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kevin breaks my balls because he's like, why would you want to do something that you could do? I'm like, I don't know that I could do this again. It almost killed me the first time. Like physically strong, fine. My legs weren't even sore the next day. Like I was good, but I don't know why my heart rate got so jacked. I'm sure it was like a nutrition thing. Like I know I didn't drink enough. Like I took off my jacket at one point and there was like a puddle of sweat just like oozing out of the sleeve.
Yep.
It was pretty bad. Same thing. Like I took out my glove and there was just water all over. But again, like meeting the people that did the whole thing, it was so much fun. Plus, being tested's always a good time. Like, you run a marathon, like, it's good. But the price tag made one of those, like, failures not an option.
Yeah.
The fact that I really was, like...
Huge part of it.
I was texting my buddy. I'm like, dude, I don't know what the fuck's going on with me right now. He's like, what? I was like, no. I was like, my heart rate's, like, 197. He's like, what? I was like, I don't know.
Everybody's asked me if I'm the Hulk right now because they're waiting for me to explode.
I felt like I was gonna. Even, like, my roommate was like, dude, you okay? I'm like, The next morning I woke up because then I'm starting to freak out. I finally get to bed at like 2:00.
Yeah.
I'm freaking out because I got to get up at 5 because
how many laps did you had 7 to go in the morning or 6?
I had 7 to go the next day. So I was like, I'm going to need like a solid 10 hours to finish this. Assuming too, like I was going to feel like crap. Like I didn't realize like after the first couple laps, like I was going to come flying through them. Cause I actually ran into Chad the second day and I had like his shirt on. So we were bullshitting for a minute and he was like, you had how many laps to do? I was like 7. And it was relatively early because I was seeing him it was like the last 2. So I had the shirt on, did that because that was going to be my last change. He was like, I probably did those 5 laps in 5 hours. And that includes coming down, whatever. So like I was really flying through. But I was freaking out the night before because I'm like, I'm going to oversleep. I'm going to miss my whole shot. I thought about that poor kid. What was the kid that got pulled off? That ended up hanging out with us was
our boy Kyle.
Yeah, I thought about him. I'm like, they pulled him off, and he is another one had more heart than anybody because it's easy to kind of finish, easy when like you're gonna hit that goal 100%. You're like, all right, I can muster up these last 2 laps.
When you feel good, when you can tell. Like I remember seeing you guys at dinner, right? And you guys were like, what do you figure there, Canada or whatever you guys are calling me? We're like, I think because dinner was at like, I think it was late. It was like 7 or 8 o'clock. And I got in at like 8:30 or 9, and I was like, okay. I was like, I'm right around 55 minutes to an hour 05, depending on the lap. And I was like, okay, because what my thinking was, this is the hilarious part about, seeing where everybody's at mentally, because each lap had a meaning, each lap had a card, and like seeing how everybody approached it was interesting. And for me, it was like, I just didn't want to stop. My A goal was like, if I can, I'm going to see how the day goes. Obviously, weather conditions, things aside, like my feet were frozen from lap 4. But I had wool socks on and I knew like I had to keep going. And I remember stopping in for dinner and everybody was like, how many do you have to go? And I was like, okay. And I think I had 5 because I was like, if I get back out there by 9, it'll be 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. I was like,
that sounds about right. Because I remember you had 5 and I was like, I wish that's where I was. Like, because I remember thinking, I'm like, God, I wish I was there. Because I was still feeling fuzzy, but I hoped dinner was going to get it.
Yeah.
But in my head, I was like, oh, if I have to stop, that's where I want to be, like 5 for the next day.
And it's strange because like you get that little bit of comfort when you go inside. You get that heat, have a little bit of ramen. And I was sitting there, and that's when the internal dialogue starts to pull, right? You got the 2 little guys on the shoulder. One's going, hey, just take it easy. Just go, just have some food, take it easy. You got 5 laps. Go do that in the morning. Have a good time. It's nice out, whatever. And then the other party's like, You're not quitting. Like you're already in this. And I thought to myself, okay, 5 times an hour, 5 hours. That means, and now I'm thinking, because I mean, that was my 25th birthday, and that was big reason I was there, was to test myself at the quarter century mark.
I wish
And
I was
now
75.
you look at some days, though, to be honest with you.
I feel like it some days, but
And actually, that's after we're done talking about Vermont, I want to ask you about, because you mentioned like if you would have done these things earlier, and well, I'll just save it for a minute now, because I know we'll get going as we do. But I remember sitting there and thinking to myself, like, all what it takes for me to get going is one idea. That's it. And I thought, okay, 2:30 means I can be in bed by 3 o'clock. Like, no questions asked. And I was like, how good is that going to feel? I was like, the shower's going to feel good. Everything's going to feel good. But what is going to feel better than anything? And I was like, if I can go sleep, make breakfast, go back to sleep, wake up for like 10, 11, maybe 12. I don't know. I was like, but the bar opens at 2.
yes, you're right. And that's what you did.
And I was like,
so envious of you.
And I was like, that means if I can do all those things, I don't have to do any laps tomorrow. I don't have to shower tomorrow. I don't have to throw in any new gear, nothing. If I can make it through the night, headlamp and all. Like, who was the lady who was doing who was on the mic? Colleen. So she was an absolute savage, right? Like, she was just there. I found out the time that she gets to rest. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning, because that was the only time I didn't see her. And when I got up and everything, because I imagine she was out there at 5, like she had a nap and got back out there. And I was like, I just want, like, that beer that got me through the last 5 laps this is all going to be worth it. Not at 2 o'clock this morning, but at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, when you're watching the boys finish, Kyle coming back from the dead, seeing everybody out there, Theodore, Kevin in his dad's uniform, like everything. I was like, that's all that's going to matter. I was like, so focus on that one beer, and these 5 laps mean nothing.
And I was the same way. When I finally got back to life, I was like, I want to sit in that gondola, because I saw you, and I remember you were saying too, everybody thought you were part of the staff, because you were
I should have worn the red hat.
You worked there. And you were sitting there having your beer, you're hanging out, and I'm like, that's what I want, because I wanted enough time in between like the dinner and the hanging out to have that beer, and almost to like still watch the people finish. Like when we were in the gondola watching Kevin go back up,
and not have your body like fresh off the course where you're like, oh my goodness, like I'm toast.
Yeah, I was so happy. I remember I was still like frozen because I was sweaty and disgusting. I didn't want to change because I wanted to get up there with you guys. And I remember Brent was yelling at me to go under the lamp. I'm like, dude, I haven't run in like 2 hours. Like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But the best part of the whole thing was, I remember I got my last lap, and I'm really like taking it in, because it was one of those, you know, when you start, you're happy to be there. But I don't know about you. For me, the buildup of this thing, I mean, I was talking about it forever. I was the first person to sign up.
Wow.
I called like a week early. I'm like, could you just take my money? And the guy, I'm like, here's the money. I was like, I don't want to hear anything. Here's the credit card. Just do it. Because I knew if I didn't commit, something would come up. I mean, it's a lot of money. I got kids. Yeah. My wife's always supportive, which is cool. But it's like, I got my permission slip signed from her. So there's no way I'm going to let this go.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm going. So I was ready. So the buildup was there. So you're all excited. Like the night before, you know, hanging out, meeting you guys was perfect, because we got to hang out, and then you talk and you listen to all the speakers, and then the next thing. So you're up there. So like, you know, first couple laps go by and you're like, oh shit, this is really happening. But then you're in the middle of it and you're like, get me off this mountain. I want to kill myself. And then I'm getting mad at myself for being miserable. I'm like, this is what you signed up for, idiot.
Yes.
So there's all that. But then there's the last few laps. I remember like the next morning, because I didn't take my phone with me the whole time. But then like the last few laps I did, because I was like, you know what, let me take some pictures. Let me like actually have fun and enjoy this. And then I remember I texted my wife. I was like, oh, I'm almost done. I was like, I'll let you know. She was all excited. I was like, full disclosure, I almost died last night. Obviously not going to tell her, you know, but I told my buddy Joe. And then when I came back and showed him the picture of the red hat, he was not shocked I finished, because he knows I'm a psycho. But he just like couldn't believe like the turnaround. You know what I mean? Even my roommate, I passed him on one lap. He's like, I thought you weren't going to make it last night.
You know what? There's not a whole lot I know about in terms of being a non-expert, but with all the training, like, but I remember when I took an intro to triathlon course, and the guy who was teaching us, who was certified and everything in whatever you need to be certified in, would tell us, like, if you peak your heart rate at any time when you're not supposed to, and you can't get it back down, he's like, scrap that workout. Like, your body needs, he's like, just give it 12, 24 hours, or make the next workout, you know, just zone 2, 3, but don't be peaking into 4 or 5, because your heart rate needs to or your heart needs to be able to rest that long. So yeah, for you to come back off of,
Yeah.
I don't know the last time I had my heart rate over 190 in my life.
I don't think I ever had either, because I was always just like a slow go just guy anyway. So like,
Yes.
I mean, I'll be out of breath because I'm fat, but not that I'm like pushing it to the end. Like,
Yes.
and I don't even know what got it there. Like I said, I think it was more like electrolytes are off or something like that. I think if I had to do it over again, I'd put a hydro pack on, because I didn't take into account using the poles. I figured I'll just grab a bottle of water and drink it up
Yes.
every time. But I didn't do that because I had the friggin' poles that I didn't know how to use. And I had
Yep.
all these bottles of water in my pocket that I never drank.
Yeah.
And I never drank the whole thing going down. So like that was the mess. But I'm on my last lap. I'm like, I obviously know I'm going to finish. I could see the thing. And I stopped for a sec because I want to take it all in. I was like, I'm not going to be on this friggin' mountain again. And then Jesse's son Laser comes down and yells at me. He's like, run it in, finish strong. He took my poles and he made me run it in. I was like, are you kidding me? And Jesse's kind of like yelling at him, like, leave him alone. I'm like, I'm fine. I really just wanted to take it in. I was like, that's not how Laser was raised, and I can't be like that. I'm like, if a 9 or 11-year-old, however old this kid is yelling at me to go, it's like, I got to run. But I remember running it in. I'm like, I just wanted to sit there for 5 more minutes because I'm never going to go back. I mean, I saw you were up there. Jesse was up there. I think Lewis Howes was up there. I don't know if you listened to his podcast.
You know what? It's hilarious because I had no idea who this guy was.
I didn't either. That girl,
yeah,
Caitlin,
got over 1 million followers and a business podcast, former NFL player or something.
Yeah, you know, do you remember, what's her name? Caitlin? That was like part of our little group? The girl that...
Yes. Yeah. Shout out.
Yeah, love her. She, that's how she found who Jesse was.
Oh, really?
Through hold on a sec. That's how she found out who Jesse was, through Lewis's podcast. So, like, she knew who he was. I found out only afterwards or whatever. Like, I remember just seeing him because, like, I remember him. Like, being
sorry.
there.
Just give me 2 seconds because this is obviously, episode 4 in a small shop operation. But my dad figured it was a good time to weed whack. And I'm just going to shut the window behind me because he's zipping in behind me.
Hey, Joe Rogan had to start somewhere too,
Oh, that's exactly it. I mean, the first one, the Wi-Fi issue have been the biggest thing. Yeah, I started the one the other day with my buddy, and we got going 2 minutes in, and I was like, man, I'm getting a mad echo. How about you? He's like, no. And then I'm looking at myself in the screen, and I thought, yeah, you don't have headphones in, do you? I was like, no, I don't. But anyway, pardon me, Caitlin and Vermont.
But so that's how, just, so I found out like who like Lewis was and all that stuff, because I never heard of him. But yeah, he's got. I remember I was on a cruise in January, like pretty much before everything got shut down.
Yeah.
And I listened to a podcast with him and Kobe Bryant, and this was 2 days before I didn't even know, there's no like internet. They got, especially when I'm on a cruise, it's like I have no contact with the outside world, and I love it that way.
Yep.
But I found out about, the helicopter crash, and I'm like, but I just listened to the thing, and like, there's so much stuff about Kobe, like I didn't know, like his personal life, as far as like how he is with his daughters and all that stuff.
Yes.
Like, the world's really missing out. Like he had like his own podcast with his daughters and stuff. There was like 15, 20 minutes at a clip. He goes, and they were all designed for you to like listen to while you take your kids to school, and how his daughters were awesome at basketball. And his daughter wanted to go to UConn, which would have been awesome because like he'd always be in Connecticut. And it's like, helicopter. It's like, oh man, that's terrible.
I mean, it's interesting that you even mentioned that. And that's like, as much as I saw him as a ball player, and he was essentially who I grew up on, and maybe even probably a little bit more on the tail end, because LeBron was probably coming in even still in my teenage years.
Yeah, he was youngin'.
Very young. And I remember same thing, like learning more about him outside of basketball as much as in. And then I can't remember who said it, but he was like, we're on to you, Kobe. Like, you're the nicest, meanest guy in the league. And then just slowly, like, same thing, like you accumulate these clips. I remember a clip when he was talking to the Alabama football team where they asked him about leadership. He said, leadership's when you look beyond, like, your own personal goals and you look at, the guys under you, those people that you're leading, and you find out their individual goals. And if you can get those to mesh with the team goals, then that's when you become a leader. He's like, it's no longer about you and achieving your goals, even though you want to do that. He's like, but if you can get everybody on your team up to that same level, then you're going to have a great time. Or like the time he would go out with his buddies, like, if they're on the road on a back-to-back or something, the guys are going out at 8 or 9 o'clock, and I can't remember who he was on, and he looks at the guy who's hosting, and he goes, all right, well, if y'all are going out, I'm going out with you. And the guys are like, what? And he's like, yeah, you guys want to party? We'll party all night, and I'll come with you. But 5 a.m. when I knock on your door, you better be getting up because now it's time to hang out with me.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And it's like people are shocked that he could do that. And I always found that was like a big difference between him and Jordan, whereas Jordan would be the guy out partying every night, but he'd still show up to play. Like it never once like inhibited him. Like I don't know how he did that. But
Yeah.
I always thought too, like and Jordan obviously had the work ethic. And
Yes.
I'm obviously much older than you, so I'm a Jordan guy over Kobe. But I'm like, if Jordan worked even the way Kobe did,
Yeah.
he might have been even that much better. Just having less days where, he was up till 5 a.m. playing cards with Magic or anything like that. But
I don't think he could have only because, well, just on that note though, I don't think he could have only because he set the trail for a Kobe. So Kobe could look at him and go, okay, when was like the media, when do I have to dial it back so I can go focus on my own life, on my personal things? Because, and especially after watching The Last Dance, like,
oh my God, I was obsessed with that.
And to realize how big he was, not only during that moment, like it doesn't take a lot for somebody to be internationally recognized now, given the connectivity. Oh, yeah. So for him to be on that global scale and have to like still play, not only is he an icon in basketball, he's an icon everywhere, like just to balance those things. Side note, have you seen the Stephen Marbury documentary?
No, I haven't, but
very interesting.
I was a big fan of him before. I've had it on like 3 times and fallen asleep, just like put it on before bed. I'm like, I could watch this and I fall asleep, so I'm like pissed off. But yeah, he was like a big thing, and then he plays like out in Europe and like all that stuff. And
well, he went to China.
Was supposed to be the next big, like,
But same thing, just like seeing and it's another reason I wanted to start. Well, actually, the reason I haven't really told people, the other reason I wanted to start this thing is because after I'd listened to, and it sounds like we listened to a lot of the same podcasts anyway.
Sure.
The one thing I found was the ideas don't change that much. The stories don't change that much. There must be more people out there that have these stories, have these mentalities, and have these things. Because I can't remember who I was listening to, but it was like some rock star told this great partying story, and he's out with his buddies and they spent way too much money and they lost one of them, but then they found them the next morning. Like it was basically like the plot of The Hangover. Yeah, right. And in my head, I was like, I've been there. Like different people, but yeah, I've had those nights where like I've got lost from the group, but everybody shows up fine, and you knock on buddy's door at 3 a.m. and they're like, oh my God, like we thought you were dead or you were gone. And then
it's like, how many times have you been like, I can't believe we didn't die, thank God, you know what I mean?
Too many times.
Yeah, when I was your age, I was still having those nights.
Well, you know what, and this is the perfect segue, because this is what I really want to understand and why I want to interview people who aren't that much older, who are older than me, but have fallen into the sports, the athletics at a level where it's starting to change your mentality. Because for me, guys look at me and they go, well, you've always been in shape. But if you know me, maybe since 22, like 22 was the first year, my buddy texted me, 55-year-old lawyer, and he said, you up for a challenge? And I said, absolutely. He said, Canadian Death Race, leg 4, you're in. So I go, I have no idea what this is. I didn't run. I was playing a little bit of hockey. It was golfing, kind of working out, but zero goal, zero commitment. I Googled the race, leg 4, 36 kilometer. Net elevation gains about 0, but it's 900 meters total. So times that by 3, about 2,700 feet for the day. And I have 5 months now to get in shape and get ready. And now it's come to the point where, 3 years later, like 120 kilometer bike ride is nothing. A half marathon on a Tuesday is nothing. But it didn't start like that. I didn't just wake up one day and go, yeah, I'm a savage, I can do this. So yeah, I want to, I guess if there is a question here, how did you get started, but do you find it is there a little bit of it's better late than never? Because it's easy to look back and say, well, I could have been doing this since I was in my 20s. Maybe I would have been that much bigger of a savage. But like you already mentioned, if you can't get yourself into that work ethic mentality, you may never start.
Oh, 100%. See, I wish I started this stuff even when I was your age, not to be even better today, just so I would have 10, 12 more years of awesome stuff that I did.
Yeah.
Because even if I take the last 5 years of things I did, times that by 3, it would just be even more stuff.
Yes.
I don't even know if I'd be any physically better, because I might be more beat up by now, and I might be shifting gears and not be able to run the way I run, or I'd have to do something else. But just to have the memories of doing stuff, plus doing it after you're married and then with children, is tougher because my wife is awesome and supportive, but this is also not what she married. Like
You
if I
got to
was this
balance.
crazy person, she would have known this going in. So it would be easy to be like, oh, it's race season, it's this season. Like, I
Yeah.
got buddies that hunt and it's like they're gone all like October, November,
Yeah.
whatever. But their wives know this, and it's like, well, I'm not giving that up. For me, I had to add this in addition to all the other stuff. And it started because I was always a meathead in and out of the gym. Like I always loved to lift weights, whatever. But I was always like,
What were your sports? Sorry, but just to give us an idea, what were the sports that you played like growing up, or like your main sports?
I loved basketball because I was a Michael Jordan fan, but I
Yeah.
was about as good at basketball as by looking at me you would think I would be. So not that good. But I played like growing up. I went to a small Catholic school, so it's like, yeah, not that everybody made the team, but like I made the team, so it wasn't that competitive. I
Yep.
played basketball and baseball. Terrible at both. I have no athletic ability. I have no hand-eye coordination. I have no footwork. Like I am not athletic even a little bit, but I'm strong. I
Yes.
did track in high school. But like I never really competed, but like that's what got me to start working out.
Okay.
So I always liked to work out. And like I was always like a stocky kid, but I was strong. And like if I was with the right people and got into it, like I would lift. And I was like that typical, like, oh, how much could you bench? Like that kid. But never competitive. Exactly, but never competitive. And like, once you throw up 2 plates, like you hit those 45s on there, like really hard so the whole gym could watch. And you bounce them off your chest a couple times and you're like, yeah, I just did that. And you flex a little bit. Even fat kids could have defined arms. So that was me. Never into it that much. Then I started boxing, but not like real competitive boxing. Yeah. Just like I don't know if you guys have like a Title Fitness or 9 rounds, but like a workout.
9 rounds just got here. There's a Frank Lee shout out. Like I took up kickboxing for about 3 months, and it's high intensity interval training if you've never done it in any scenario, let alone boxing. Yeah, it's absolutely bang for buck, huge.
So I started doing that because as I was a kid too, like I've always done martial arts, like on and off. Like I did karate, taekwondo, like all kinds of like a little bit of Muay Thai. Like looking back, if I could have started that and stuck with it, I probably never would have run a mile in my life because I did jiu-jitsu for 30 years and be happy doing that. I would actually quit all this now if I could do martial arts a little bit more competitively. But it's just hard. Because, it's hard though because then you got to commit to times and classes and like you really got to learn the thing. Whereas like running, it's like, oh, I have an hour, I'm gonna go.
Return on investment's a little simpler.
Exactly. But I love like the arts, and plus I grew up in the Tyson era, so between Mike Tyson and Rocky movies, like I just want to hit stuff. But anyway, so I'm doing like title, I'm getting like in better shape, still lifting, whatever. And one of the instructors, who was 10 years younger than me, he's like, I'm gonna do a warrior dash, which is really, and no disrespect to the warrior dash or people that do it, it's like a very watered down Spartan race.
Okay.
So it's like an obstacle race. It's a mud run. It's a lot of fun. It's still challenging. For some people, it's the biggest thing they'll ever do, and it definitely a shout out for them.
Spider Mountain.
I did it. I wanted to die. It took me it was a 5K, so it was 3 miles. It took me over 90 minutes. I thought I was gonna die. It was bad. I mean, I didn't mind doing the obstacles, which looking back are not that hard. But I was like, oh no, I thought I was in shape, so this is not good. So I did that, but I got hooked. I'm like, this is really cool. I remember too, my wife was pregnant with our first kid, who's now 5. And she was like worried. She's like, could you do this stuff? I'm like, I don't know. She's like, you're going to snap an ankle break. I'm like, I don't know, but you're looking at it. And if you don't know, like you're going to die. I'm like, and looking back now, thinking that for a warrior dash, that's hysterical. Like I've done those things work. So I did that. I was like, you're going to die. I was like, I might, but I'm like, what kind of dad am I going to be if I can't even do this stupid thing? So I did it. I felt like death. And I was like, I'm never going to feel like this again, ever. Especially when I thought I was getting in shape. Because I was. At that time, too, I lost a few pounds. And, I was doing all those classes and, whatever. I'm like, I was also like literally like punching holes and punching bags and stuff. Like I was strong. Like I'm good, ready to go. I was like, I could do this thing. Nope, I couldn't. So then I did a Spartan race, just a stadium one.
And then it gets in your head, too.
It immediately hooked me. So then I started running because I was like, well, I got to get better at the running because I don't want to be dying in between obstacles. So we do that, and then I become a medal whore like everybody else. And then you start doing these things. And then we go to Disney. My kid is 10 months old, 8 months old, whatever. And people are walking around with medals on their neck. And I find out that Disney has a marathon week. They have a 5K, a 10K, a half, and a full all in a row. It's called the Dopey Challenge. Now, at that time, I never ran more than like 3-4 miles. So we're there in January. Obviously, it's all over. By April, you have to sign up for the next year. So April comes, and I'm like, all right, I'll do the 5 and 10K, and I'm like, I'll stretch and do the half.
Yep.
Obviously, it came up. I clicked Dopey Challenge. I'm like, I'm doing the whole friggin' thing, and it just started me on this path. I'm like, I got to learn to do it, and it all came down to like, what kind of dad would I be if I can't do this? Like,
Yes.
I don't have like this awesome, like cool job. Like, it works. I put food on the table. We have a beautiful house. And like,
Yeah.
on paper, I am totally killing it. Like
Yeah.
I live in like that awesome neighborhood and we got the colonial and I got the 2 kids and we have a dog and he's got a swing set and a bouncy house. And we have all the stuff. We go on all the vacations.
Got the externals there.
We've got the cool stuff, but it's like, it's nothing to be proud of. Like, at least for me.
Oh, no. See, and that's, I'm fired up now.
Not even a little bit. Like, there's nothing where you're like, I'm not, I mean, not that I think I'm better than anybody else, but it's nothing where you're going to look at me like I
doesn't define
like
you.
Father, son, like my dad can't do stuff. So like,
but it's not going to be like if you died tomorrow, they're not going to be putting underneath, own the colonial, great family, great kids, had the dog, worked full time, never missed a shift. What's going to be under there is, work ethic, incredible, yeah, exactly. Those are the things. And just honestly, like I literally got goosebumps a minute ago, right when you said that's not something to be proud of, because it is in the sense you want to lead it.
I worked hard for it and whatever, but it's like, it's only money. Like, whatever. Yeah. Like there's people that make a lot less than me, have a lot less than me, but they work probably 5 times as hard as I do. And they're better people than I am, I'm sure too. So it's like, I can't. Do you think my value on this?
Yeah. So do you think, because this is always interesting too, do you think you have any like mental demons or things in there that like that you chase?
My self-talk is terrible. If anybody ever spoke to me the way my self-talk is, I would smack the shit out of them. I'm like yelling at I yell at myself all the time, like bad, like probably like David Goggins bad, and I'm trying to become like Chad Wright, like be nice to yourself. Like
positive self-talk's huge.
Like
that middle ground, I think that middle ground is a good place to be in. And I think 100%. Chad's got it figured out, because there's 100%. Times too where like it'll be a 5K and I'll be 4 kilometers in, at a 4.5 minute pace. And I'm like, oh, I'm killing it. Or, all of a sudden I'll be like a 5:30, 5:45. And that's when it's like, it's just a 5K, bitch. Like, figure it out. Like, let's get going. Like, come on. But at the same time, like, I was on my bike, last month, wanted to do more than I ever have. I was like, I want to get, like, I've done a few 100Ks and I was like, I want to get to 125 plus. That was the only A goal. Figured out where I could get to kind of to turn around and come back. 100 kilometers in, passing this guy on the left on a nothing trail, like just little, sidewalk, fully paved, everything, and enough room to fit probably 4 bikes through. Gave this guy too much room. Which is not a bad thing. Ate shit. Like 100 kilometers on the dot in. And sure enough, scraped up my hip because falling on concrete's an absolute treat. So I'm sitting there bleeding off the hip, could see it coming through the suit. Kind of got like the bit of the shake, the adrenaline starting to kick in.
I felt yesterday at mile 18, I'm like, oh no. Like it makes you realize like you're not doing nearly as good as you thought, stupid.
You find out who you are in those moments, because now I'm thinking, okay, I'm 101 kilometers in. My dad's here. I got the bike rack on my car. He could just come get me. I got 20K to go. I'm going to try and do a little, 5K around my house to get to 125. But I'm sitting there, and that's when the self-talk, like, if you can turn it to where it's positive, it's hard. It is really hard, because it's so easy to just shut it down, close the door. You figure out your way out. And then I'm sitting there and I'm going, 25 kilometers. That's an hour. You can't, you think you want to do the things you want to accomplish. You want to be able to work long shifts. You want to gain the clients. You can't get that last 25K and you got half a water bottle and a granola bar. Like, oh, you got this. You're not tired. Get back on the bike. Like, just get back on the bike, clip in and go. Just don't think about it. Just go. Be sad when you're home. Be tired when you're home. Sure enough, I hopped in the shower and it was a beautiful day out. It's 25 degrees, which I'm pretty sure is about mid 80s. And man, I jumped in the shower. I was just freezing shiver for no reason. But it was like, no, adrenaline wore off. Your hip's bleeding. Everything hurts. Well, like, time to shut her down.
You find out where all the scrapes are when you get in the shower. You find out all the shit that hurts that you didn't realize was going to hurt. That's like the best and worst part of it. Like when I took a shower yesterday, I was like surprised nothing else hurt. Because like
Yeah.
I took a spill, it was no big deal. Like, I ran, fell in the trail, my hand got all banged up, which I knew, but like nothing else, like no knee, no nothing else. But I've done Spartan races where you just come back in and like you're just all scraped up, you don't realize
Yes.
it, and then you start washing it all off, and you're like, oh, that's not mud, that's crusty blood. But my self-talk, a lot of it's like okay, but every once in a while, I'm like, your kid's gonna think you're a bitch. What are you doing? What kind of father are you? You have 2 sons. Who are they going to look up to? And I'm like, it's almost like
It's
not
it's tough though, because you have to find what gets you going, right? And that's the hardest part, I find. And it's interesting because like I don't really have a lot of dependents or anybody that I'm trying to inspire. But again, another reason I wanted to start this show was because that at the end of the day, if people understood what it's like to get up half an hour earlier, to go to bed half an hour earlier, to drink that much more water, to do a kilometer more, 2 kilometers more, a mile more, 5 miles more, to understand what those little changes will do for you in your everyday life, to the point where I was just like you, like I ran 5K that same spring when my buddy said, hey, let's sign up. I was like, man, you can barely do 5K in 25 minutes. Like you used to play on hockey teams, used to play on baseball teams, basketball. You've always done sports, and you can't do this. Now when I do 5K, I'm like, this is a warm up. Like I'll do 5K before I hit the gym.
It's almost like annoying to go to like the actual event, because you're like, all this build up, you're like, I'm not warmed up for like another 5 mile or whatever,
Yeah.
That, because that's how I am. It's, you get through the first few and then like you hit like that stride, but it's never at a 5K. Like I'll do them with like a weight vest or something else. Like,
but it's just what is so interesting to hear. Again, this is why I want to, especially people with families and young children. Like for me, I just want to show people like you don't have to sign up for the psychopath program. I don't recommend it unless you love it. Right? Like it's not a place you need to be.
When people ask me like, oh, I want to start running, I'm like, no, you don't. Like, nope, no need. It's like your time could be better spent. Like you'll get in better shape doing other stuff. I go, I love race day. Like I really do. It's all about the event for me. I mean, I love the training and everything it does for me, but I work out just as hard swinging a kettlebell and never meet anybody doing that. Like I'm not going to be a CrossFit guy. I'm not going to do the CrossFit games. Like that wouldn't even interest me. And I don't know that much about it, but I don't think there's that like community that there is with the racing. Like, I went to the event yesterday. There's people young, old, short, fat, black, white, everything. Like people you look at, be like, there's no way they could run. And then they smoked me just because they're just you know what I mean?
Oh, there's nothing more humble. There's nothing more humbling than seeing somebody on the start line. You're going, yeah, no chance. And then with 2 kilometers to go, they're just there. They are, had a plan, stuck to the game plan.
Or they're like, already done eating their pizza, and you're like, oh, they must have dropped out. Meanwhile, now they're on the podium. But that happens all the time. I mean, a lot of the women I run with too, they're like all like in their 50s, which isn't that old, but it just goes to show, like, I mean, they're twice your age, but they'll run 50 miles, and you're like, oh yeah, oh okay, like you don't have to be the sick grandmother and the sick grandfather. And,
well, especially like people's endurance prime, I believe, like is late 20s to late 30s, because physiologically, apparently, that's the amount of hours and time you need to put into condition your body even to even do a half marathon. Like for me, for example, when I at the time 5'11", probably 185, currently weighing 165.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah, no, I got a road bike. I've been trapped indoors. Not a lot of gym time.
I wouldn't be 165 if I had AIDS. Oh my God.
Man, I literally haven't weighed 165 probably since high school, and we're talking like early high school. So I mean, take that for what it's worth. And one of my favorite expressions that really switched for me, especially being a young guy, part of it's aesthetic, right? Where you're like, I want to be shredded, I want to be all these things. But it switched for me. Max Holloway weighed in. He was 145, and he said, they interviewed him and they asked him some question. They said, how you feeling? How do you look? Blah, blah, blah. He said something to the extent of, we're not worried about show muscles. We're worried about go muscles. And I was like, oh, baby, did that just flip everything for me? For now, now in my head, it ain't about looking shredded. But yeah, I want my 5K time to be in a certain range, 10K time, half, full. Let's just focus on the training. The rest take care of itself.
It's so funny you say that, because I'm at the point now, especially being a former and, depending on the day, current fat kid. Yeah. I've got my diet in check. I do like the low carb, the whole keto thing, whatever. It works for me. It like fuels me. It it keeps me from eating the tray lasagna. So just I'm better off not having it, whatever.
Yes.
But I'm at the point now when I was like bigger. If I were to look at myself in today's state, I would think all I would want to do is get ripped because I'm like close enough where if I just put the right work in, I mean, an easy 6-pack. And for someone like me to say that, I'd be like, really? But like, I know the formula for it.
Yeah.
It's not
This
even
is the first year I've ever seen my abs.
but it's not even on my radar to give a shit because I'm like, nope, I got this 100 that I got to worry about. So I'll be a little skinny fat for a while because the problem with running as much as I do too is it doesn't get you in that much better shape because you just get better at running. So you might spend 3-4 hours running and it's a hell of a workout. But if I spent 2 hours doing anything else, I'd burn more calories. So with that and the extra calories I just have to take in, like I'll be fine. I'll still be lean, but I won't get shredded up. Whereas if I just completely lift, do what I do now and just lift at a quarter of the time that I run, I'd be ripped.
Yeah.
And I always would have thought that's where I'd want to end up. But it's like, I don't get to race day fun being ripped. And I like to stay in a pretty good condition. Whereas if you called me up, if you didn't live in the middle of nowhere, you're like, hey, you want to go do this thing? Yeah, I'll go do the thing. Whatever it is, just let me know. Like, I like staying like that. But it's so funny. Like you said, those go muscles, it's like, well, a strong core is a big deal, but like, it doesn't matter if I have an 8-pack. Like, I won't be faster as a result.
Yes.
Like, yeah, I could drop a couple pounds because that'll help me, but
to
get to where I want to be, being ripped is not the formula.
And I think that would help a lot of people who go to the gym, and especially when they find themselves stuck. Like, find a goal that's measurable, less qualitatively, more quantitatively. Like, I had a buddy of mine, same thing back in the day in college, and he was never a big kid, and he was shorter. He's probably 5'7", 5'8", maybe 5'9", but he just never lifted, never did anything, and he got to 135, and he was like I can't get any farther. Just like a plate aside, and he's like, I can't get any farther than this. He's like, I feel stuck. I'm doing bench every other day, every week. Like what do I have to do? And I was like, what do you do for core? Oh, not much. Okay, what do you do for pardon me?
What do you do for back? What do you do for shoulders? How many push-ups do you do? What do you do?
Exactly. I'm like, sometimes, it's like cars. You got to go left to go right. Like you gotta do the other things, So I told him, I was like, start doing core before and after every workout. Get a little bit of your cardio up. I was like, at the end of the day, you also have to treat that bench like you treat a race. You're not going to do bench first thing after, I'll run on the treadmill. Like, there's nothing more I love than seeing a guy, some absolute meathead go on the treadmill for 8 minutes on, 5 miles an hour and then jump to the bench and get after it. When I'm like, do some push-ups, get some sit-ups and like activate your body, get the blood flowing, get things going. And you'll find just from that, you might be able to throw another 10 pounds on each side, another 20 pounds on each side.
Almost immediately. Like, you won't even realize. It's like everything else. It's like, you see a boxer shadow boxing before the biggest fight of their life. It's like, they didn't take a nap and just wake up and go. Like, they got the whole sweat going. They have everything for a reason. You got to get your body activated. But you got to but that's going to also be your mindset. Like you said,
you learn. The more events you do, you learn.
Yeah, and you just, I'm a big figure it out afterwards. Not so much less prep, but it's I'll fall on my face in an event because I know I'm not going to win them anyway. It's about just doing them in the experience. So it's if I had a shitty event, it's well, the next one I'll come back better. Like when I did my first marathon at the end of the Dopey, both of my Achilles tendons were swollen where my shoes won't even fit.
Ooh.
So, it's just I had the tendonitis. It is what it is. But then I just went to a running coach who fixed that, and it's never been a problem again. But it's I probably should have learned that in the first place. But that's just not my style.
But I mean, even with you saying that's the other thing too, because people will come to me and they say, how can you run so much? How can you, bike so much? How can you do all these things? And then I tell them also, I'm trying to get a half an hour of stretching in every day. No questions asked. I'm trying to hydrate every day. I'm like, where you might stay out that extra hour at the bar, have another pint and have another order of fries. That's turning into a water for me. And I'm going home at 9. I'm like, it's just those little things that just all of a sudden they add up. And when you wake up on race day and you're at that start line, it's like, oh baby, here we go. But one more thing I want to ask you, and it was not that we didn't touch on it, but on the Vermont, when you finished, what emotions did you feel when you finished Vermont? Because I'm very curious to see what was going through your head at that time.
I kind of was sad it was over. I'm weird with events like this. I had all this build up and it was awesome, but I was so sad it was over. And again, this is where the negative self-talk is. As happy as I was, and I'm oh, I definitely finished, and I couldn't wait to tell everybody, I was kind of pissed. I slept.
Did it leave you wanting more? Is
I
that
want to
part
do,
of it
I
though?
will 100% do another one. I want to do Utah. I'm just trying to work out the logistics because now with all the events being canceled and some people
Yep.
being able to roll over and then just figuring out money and logistics and two
Yep.
kids and all that. But I want to do Vermont again because I want to go straight through. And I want
Really?
to do Utah just because it looks awesome. But I'm petrified of the heat because I hate the heat.
See, I think it'd be a different grind in Utah. I love the heat.
It'd be terrible. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. But like, I want to conquer Vermont and I want to go straight through. So yeah, so it was like it was bittersweet. Like I was pumped that I finished. It was a perfect experience. I got everything I wanted to get out of it. But then like the self-critic that I am, it's like, yeah, but you know, you're soft and you went to sleep in the night bed. I'm like, I can't let myself enjoy anything. I'm like so bad. It was great, but that was the emotion. Like I was pumped. I was like, for the moment, I was happy it was over. So I'm like, get me, you know how it is, like get me off that
Yes.
friggin' mountain.
Yes.
But then it was like I get that red hat and I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And there's this one picture I remember too, like when Colleen was giving me the medal, I gave her a hug. Like there was this look on my face that like I couldn't replicate again. I'm like, it was amazing.
Yes.
But there's still that part of me that's like, I think about it and I'm like so disappointed because I was like, I don't think that I could have finished with you, but I should have been in the top 5. I was definitely strong enough. Like,
yeah,
even the top 10, because I also know that Jesse's niece maybe, because I know his sister was doing it and the niece was there and she only chose to sleep because she was like, I didn't want to finish at 3 a.m. when nobody was around, but she was killing it.
It's a different finish at that time of day, let me tell you.
And that was the thing. So like, so I look at all you savages and like, the people that are like, the friggin' Olympians, like I know they're going to go, but like, as far as like regular people, it's like, I should have been better than all of them. And like, not a better or worse, but I put the work in. So I'm pissed at myself. So that's where, but that's also, I think, I can't tell if that's good or bad self-talk. Cause like, it does motivate me, but it's like, come on, dude, enjoy something. You killed yourself. You did a thing that people tried, like almost died doing. So that was like the wacky thing.
Yes. It's just interesting. And the reason I want to ask it is because I don't getting too emotional to start because I mean, how I marked the board, like it was just like all the triangles were everywhere. Because when I get there, like I eliminate everything not relevant. When I had to think, I'm not. It's not where I'm mark like at the last one, whatever. And then sure enough, right, like 3 a.m. comes, it's pitch black. I get the headlamp on. There's one guy at the top. Like I'm pretty sure it's our bartender who's also ski patrol. But I found like so after I was up there, I went and sat by a heat lamp for a little bit just to kind of take it all in. That was my version of taking it all in. And there's 2 people up in that tent, and I'm thinking to myself like damn, like this is like you did it, like 29,029 feet. Like regardless of how the setup is, regardless of whether people think it's easy, hard, otherwise, like
yeah. And the people that would say it's easy are never one person that did it. Like I would never say it's easy. Like I know like what I did. I looked at my Nordic track because I bought one with 40% incline. Really kind of for this event, and that's where I did most of my incline, just because I would rather do it outside. But again, with the kids, and if you got to do stuff at 4 a.m., like I just don't have time to like drive to a mountain, whatever. But I put 100,000 feet of elevation in to train to do that. And that was just on the treadmill. That had nothing to do with anything else that I did. But that was just like the quantifiable thing, like 100,000 feet to get to that 30,000 feet. So like, yeah, there are some people that would say, oh, that's easy. Okay, go do it. And then not even saying you can't do it, but tell me it's easy after you've done it.
Yes. Yes.
It's not. But I still should have been able to go straight through.
Well, I mean, yeah, but at the same time, like it's also, I have no doubt you could have, but also like how you learn about yourself too. And when you don't get that chance, when you have to reset, you have to adapt in that moment. Like that's another reason I love these events is because that's when you learn, like, you don't get to go back to your nice house. You don't get to go back to your job. This is it. It's you. It's whatever you brought. It's your mentality. And now you got to finish.
It was fun to be scared. Like now looking back on it, like that's probably my favorite. That's what I think about all the time. Like I honestly think about like meeting you guys and all that. And like, that's why I do it. But when I need to reach down, the good old Goggins cookie jar, I'm like, I go right back to that moment where I'm like, I like petrified. I was like, what am I going to do? I talked all this shit about doing this beforehand. And now I'm like, what's my number going to be? Like, I don't want to do it. But then all these thoughts too, it's like, well, I don't want to ruin the event because I spent a lot of money on it and I want to
Yeah.
enjoy it. So it's like, but how could I enjoy it if I failed? And it's like,
Yeah.
not doing it's not a failure, but just not hitting your goals not a failure. Like when I did the 53 miles instead of 100, people are like, oh, that's great. I'm like, failed. Like,
Yeah.
it's a fail. Like, it's what it is. Like, I'll learn from it. You know, I quit, which I've never done before, and it's all like is what it is, and I'm fine with it, and I'll move on and whatever. But like, it's to me, it's not an accomplishment. Like, it's miles, but it's like I didn't
Yeah.
accomplish the
It's
thing.
hard. It's
I
hard.
didn't, you know, and it's probably better to be that way because if you get too used to just accepting stuff, just because you know,
Yeah.
if someone who doesn't run's like, oh, 50 miles, that's a lot. I'm like that, yeah, but that's not the thing that I wanted to do. It's like if you listen to too many people that are awed by what you do, it'll
Yes.
make you too soft. And I kind of get that because I wasn't always this guy. So like it really is impressive to see me do these things. Like if you knew who I was 10 years ago,
Yes.
you're like,
Yes.
this fat bat, like you did that. It's like, yes. So having said that, like I'm impressed with myself, but I don't get to take myself too seriously when, you know, I'm doing stuff that 70-year-old guys are doing faster than me. So
Yeah.
like I know there's a lot of room there, but I can't let myself be surrounded by too much, or at least let it in when too many people are like,
Yes.
oh, but no, you did fine. I could never do that. I'm like, I'm not comparing myself to you. Like, I don't care.
You know what? I find that it's interesting you bring that up because I find that very hard at times because I'm the same way. And I told my mom once, I said, I would rather have a room full of rejection letters and times I failed, like the storybook of how we got there before I put up a single medal, because that's part of it too. Like, yeah, I love the accomplishment. I love the everything. But even in the little write-up I put under my Instagram post about Vermont is like, once you summit that, go find, like, you got to find what's next, because if you
Oh,
don't
100%.
and you just rest on your laurels, like it's a what have you done for me lately mentality that is a
You'll be
tough
like,
place to live.
you're like the Al Bundy 4 touchdowns in one game at Polk High in high school. You're like, that's cool. Like, you peaked when you were 18. Like, I'm just shocked. I don't understand how somebody your age has all this. Like I said, I started this like with my kids because I'm like, I don't want to be that dad, but I'm like, I don't understand how people are so motivated when they are young. Like, you have like
It's
all your shit together. I don't get it.
mm,
On
I,
paper, at
those
least.
those are two different things, I would say. But for me, and again, like I don't really get into this with a lot of people, and it doesn't come up as much. But like for me, it's the way I'm chipped, and everything I've ever observed. Like you start to realize how the real world works a little bit in terms of effort and patience and just being grateful, and you realize that it's like when you said earlier, like, Joe Rogan started somewhere. Everybody starts somewhere with something, and the more you can learn from these things, like for me, like at once upon a time I was fat in my own head, whether or not I was. Never been over 200 pounds, but like in grade 10, after I came back from private school, I was 190 pounds.
Oh, wow. That's
So
big for you.
yeah, and shave off an inch or two of height. So maybe like, 5'9", 5'10", instead of right at that 5'11", where I probably hit end of grade 10, end of grade 11 anyway. And it just, the little things that I carry with me still, like there's demons all throughout this brain. There's no doubt about that. And it's just amazing. Like all it takes is one thing for me to get going. Like when people tell me I can't do something, or yeah, they're like, oh, well, that's good, but it's not that fast. And I'm like, I'll get faster. I don't care. Like I'll get stronger. I'll keep going. Like I'll beat you there. Like my buddies, I did the backyard ultra last month, or 2 months ago now in June. And one of the things, sorry, you still hear me out?
Yep.
Oh, sorry, video just froze. Anyway, one of the things was, it was just a 6.7 kilometer loop. So basically, if you do 24 hours, I think it was 100 kilometers or 100 miles. It worked out some way like that, so that it was an even amount. And same thing, I went out there and I was like, okay, I want to get at least like 6-7 laps in, like no questions asked. Like we're going 40 plus, like at least doing a marathon, try to get to 50K. But I also, the 2 days prior, like had bike 70K and bike 90K, and threw a full workout in there in between. And I left it all out there. Like lap 5, did I do 5 or 6? I can't remember. But my last lap was a criminal amount of pain. I couldn't even get a slow jog going. My feet hurt, my toes hurt, my calves hurt, my legs hurt, but I just kept telling myself, hey, go. Just keep going. Forward's better than zero, even if it's slow. Try and jog some sections. See if you can get back to the garage by the time the next lap starts and go again. And sure enough, literally missed the cutoff by about 2 minutes for that next lap. But same thing. Sat down on the couch, was talking to myself, hated myself for a little bit. And then I thought, yes, you did not get the miles or the kilometers you wanted in. But if you look at the body of work that you just put forward, started at 7 a.m., like
that's acceptable.
You literally, like, I was like, could I have hydrated better? I was like, no, stretched everything. Like, I ticked all the boxes. Body just quit before the heart wanted to. And I was like, I can live with that. I can live with that every day of the week, because when, Goggins and everybody talks about wringing out the towel of everything you got left, like, it was one of those days where I thought, yeah, this McDonald's is about to taste phenomenal, because you left every ounce of yourself out there.
Absolutely, man. And that's like the whole point, is like, because even like the event that I did yesterday, like, that was just training. Like, I was like, I got 6 hours of training because it was supposed to be done in April for this June event anyway. So, which I was going to use it as training. So I was like, I just wanted my 20 miles because I really didn't want to kill myself. Like, I hit 50 miles for this week, like 53 miles for the week running, plus like a bunch of other workouts. So like, I didn't train for it. Like, this is the event where like I would have tapered and I would have done stuff. I'm like, nope, ran every day leading up to it, worked out every day leading up to it, worked out the night before. I was like, I just want to get 20 miles in this setting.
Yes.
And that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have another one on Saturday, same thing. I ran this morning.
Yeah.
I'll run all week. Like, I'll keep doing it. So I have like the different mindsets. Like, there's some where it's like, I have to do XYZ, whatever the goal is. Leave it all out on the table. But like, I'll train correctly though. Because it's like, even like the event that you were just talking about, it's like, had you not worked out prior before,
even like a mini taper, essentially. There was no taper. It was just like, this is part of my week.
That's the thing. It's like using that as training or doing it as the event. Like, when I do my 100 or go for my 100 in November, that's the event. Like, I'm not going to David Goggins it where I'm like, oh, this is what I'm doing today. And then, go do pull-ups when I finish. Like, that's not it. Like, this is the end all be all. So like a couple weeks beforehand, like, I'm going to be very meticulous and careful and everything. But you just treated that event like, this is what I'm doing today for the workout, which I love doing shit like that. Like, I've even done marathons like that.
Let's just push it. Let's see what happens.
I'm like, I'm going to do a walk run because I just got to get the miles in, and I don't want to beat myself up because 2 days later I got to go back to running again. But like, on the events where I'm like, this is the thing, I know I'm going to eat a whole pizza afterwards, and I know I'm going to have like a gigantic sandwich and all the shit that I don't eat, and I'm going to take a week off, but I got to leave it all out there. Like, the last time I did this event, I mean, it was April, it was a little bit different, but I got like the marathon distance that I wanted, and it was like perfect, and I trained leading up to it. But this, it was like, if I didn't get my 20, I would have been pissed. But I can't. But after running the first couple sections, I'm like, unless I get like actually hurt, there's no reason I wouldn't do it. Because the one thing I've learned with my body, at least, is like, I know the difference between like taking it easy because I won't be able to train again, and then just quitting because like it's a minor tweak.
Yes.
Like, I've screwed up my feet a couple times. Like, the last time I was training for that dopey challenge, I was doing my 20 miler. And I got about like 7-8 miles away, and it was on Christmas Eve too. It was like snow, whatever.
Yeah.
My foot started to hurt, but it was like a weird pain that like I haven't felt before. And I was like, if I was in an event, I'm assuming I would have just kept going, but I'm like, I could really fuck my foot up.
So it's so hard.
I just turned around and walked home. Like, I was talking to my buddy. He's like, why don't you call Jess, my wife? I was like, well, no, this is punishment for, for failing. I was like, I'll still
it's hard to tell yourself turn around though.
But I knew that it was one of those, like, it'll hurt me training again.
Long term versus short term.
It takes a while to get to that point because you always just want to push it, but it's like, what's the value in doing a 20-mile training run and then dropping out of a marathon because like you actually broke your foot and like you can't walk now? So it takes a while to get to that point, but once you do, then your self-talk's a little bit better too. Because like I said, when shit hurts, I'm like, just push through it. But every once in a while, I'm like, if I tweak this thing just right, like after I did my 50K with my friend, my foot was killing me. Which, Trifine, you'll love her. I'll make an introduction. You need to talk to her. Her story,
absolutely,
she's 1,000 times better than me. She's just been all over the world. She's just a psychopath too. You'll love her. But after I ran with her, I'm sure my foot was screwed up beforehand. So when I showered and stuff, like, my feet hurt. But I'm like, a road 50K is going to do that. The next morning I woke up, I put my feet on the floor to get out of bed. I fell. I was like, oh shit, like, this is not good.
Oof.
So I just rested, like, I just want to make sure I didn't end up in a boot. But now I'm
Yeah.
like a little bit more aware. Like, yeah, my feet hurt yesterday, but I was like, it's not the same pain. Like, you just have
Yes.
to know the
Yes.
difference when you're leaving it all out there and quitting. Like, you didn't quit.
Yes.
First of all, if you're pulled off a course, more power. I would rather get pulled off all day and not finish than just say, nah, I'm not going to do it. Because I've done that once. It's the worst feeling ever.
You know what?
I'm using it as motivation now. Like, part
You
of
know
me
what's
even thought of that. I was like, I'll use this as motivation. Because, like, I knew I was going to be pissed the next day, but I didn't care. But I was like, I'm going to think of this every day.
But like what's hilarious is with you telling that story is the October before I met all of you guys, I had a 50K signed up for. Also had a work conference the week prior, so I wasn't doing a lot of training, having a couple of drinks, whatever. But I thought I was like, I'll just treat it like a bit of a taper. I'll get some runs in during the week just to kind of get the body ramped up. But I'm confident I can do this. Get to the race, and it snowed quite a bit that weekend. And October near the mountains, at any time it could snow.
Right?
Yeah. So they had to shut down two out of the 5 legs. So we had to run 2 legs twice and 1 leg once. So we basically ran like 1, 3, 3, 5, 5. And the best part about leg 5 was it was just 2 5-kilometer loops. So really, at least mentally, really easy to wrap your head around.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So same thing, like kilometer, through 10, easy, through 15, getting hard, through 20, whatever. Now I'm getting into like 25 and my hips starting to hurt. And I'm like, it's, a little bit, but whatever. And now I'm coming in like, on kilometer 30, 35. And I'm like, okay, I got 5 kilometers to go to like, the reset line, but that's fine. You can go stop at the aid station, get some water, and you get whatever. I'm like limping in through the gate here on kilometer 40. And now I'm staring between me and a 50-foot run out to the start line, basically the little aid station area. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, you got this. 10K, even at a walking pace, it'll take you a couple hours. You got nowhere to be. Well, it was Canadian Thanksgiving. Shout out to the October Thanksgivings. And I was like, could be home a little earlier, but a goal is finish. No more pain have I ever experienced physically than in those moments. Like every step felt like somebody took my left eye T-band and just tightened it as tight as they could. Hip was jacked up. Both feet hurt. Calves were tight, not only like at the top, but like just everything. So now my sister's there because she was the one who had drove me. And like, I got my sunglasses on, but you can start to see the tears coming. Like it's just,
that bad.
You're starting to really realize who you are. And same thing I told her. She's like, well, why don't you just stop? 40K is amazing. It's great, but don't hurt yourself. And just seeing you shaking your head is like me standing there going, I can't fall on the sword. This is not who I am. This is not who I'm built to be. Right? So let's go.
What's the difference?
I take 15 steps, turn around. I'm like, I hate to say it, but I have to accept. I can't. Today, I can't. Like every step is excruciating and it's a new pain. And that makes me nervous because if I can't train for November, if I can't train in December, I'm going to be pissed. But the issue was that was my last race of the season. So to end a great season, death race, I think I did my first half marathon that summer, did a couple 10Ks, like to end on that note was devastating. It was devastating. They had a free buffet with your timing chip. You hand your timing chip in, you get your thing, and then you go get the free buffet. Standing by the aid station. And they also give you these beautiful little pints that say like Grizzly Ultra Marathon Solo Finisher. And that's all I wanted. It was like the beer for me. I was like, I want that mug. That's all I want. So I had to look at the lady in the eye and I said, all right, I'm done. And she goes, oh, nice. Did you finish the 50? And I'm like, no. And she's like, oh, that's right. Like, just make sure to go inside, like, get some buffet. Like, you've earned it. And I just literally handed her the timing chip, trying not to say fuck you to this random lady for no reason.
Like, you're like, this isn't against you, but go fuck yourself.
I'm like, if we could just swap brains for a second, you'd be immediately sad. And my sister's trying to like talk me off the cliff, as I'm walking down the way back to the car, because there is no feeling like not accomplishing your goals that our buddy Drew that we were in Vermont with, like he did that 75-mile walk. I don't know if you saw it last month. And there was a part during that walk where he got on his phone and he was like, when you have to compromise with your goals, a part of your soul dies. So you never fucking compromise. And I was just like, same thing. I'm sitting there at home. I'm like, where are my shoes? I'm getting outside. Right? Like, here we go. So yeah, to end on that note and like to understand what it's like to be in those moments and to learn sucks so much. But what it does for you down the road, when I shaved an hour off the death race time that next year, when I got to Vermont with that knowledge, when I did my first marathon, like there's no substitute for failure. I don't preach failure, but you're going to fail and you got to know it's going to happen at some point.
Or you're not like challenging yourself enough. And wait till you have kids. And then I always think to myself when I wanted, just when this sucks, fill in the blank, whatever it is, I just always have my oldest kid next to me in my head going, why you want to quit, Daddy? And I'm like, how am I going to answer that?
It's amazing the things medals, that will come into your head at those times too.
Yeah. He loves my medals. He loves all my bigs.
Yeah.
Like, I love all that stuff before I get them. Then once I get them, I'm like, I don't care about them. Like they could all be in a box for all I care.
Yeah.
Like there's a couple cool ones I like because of how they look and a couple cool ones for what they remind me of.
Yes.
Like in my gym downstairs, I only have the 29029 stuff displayed because I had the time of my life. It was exactly what I wanted.
Yes.
Up in the office upstairs, my wife and I have like all our race medals and stuff. My kid loves them. Like I remember this was a couple years ago. He's running around with my New York City marathon one, and I was like, "Oh, he really won." I'm like, "What do I give a shit if he?" Yes. What am I going to do with it if my kid is not going to be able to play with it? Like, I don't care. She's like, well, he was a little sick. If he throws up on him, like, I'll go get another one. Like, I'll run another one. Like, I don't care.
Yes.
Like, the point is for him to see this stuff. But that's where my self-talk gets in. It's like, what kind of father are you?
Yeah.
And if I have to fall and die, it's one thing. Like, if something snaps or whatever, it's, it's what it is. Like, I'm not cut from the same cloth as Goggins or Chad or any of those people. Like, I'm not going to do what they do and I'm not going to compete with them. And if it's like a last man standing backyard ultra, they will smoke me and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it. That's cool. I'll probably quit before Jesse would quit. That's all fine. But when it comes to like real life stuff and you want to run, you want to do, and you were in that situation, it sucked. You had new pain. Like I get it. Cause I would have probably done the same thing. Cause you're like, well, I'm not going to die here. But there's also that little thing, like wait till you have a kid. That'll give you that extra, like, I could go 20 more feet instead of 15.
Yes.
Because you're just going to have, because no matter what you have, if you have a son, you got to figure out how to raise a man. If you have a daughter, she needs to see what a real man is like, so she's treated the right way. Yes. So it's a really insane amount of pressure that a guy like you will probably put on themselves. But that's what I do. I'm like terrible with myself because I'm like, what are my kids going to do? Like I got to leave like a podcast to friggin' raise them. It's like, nope, just go do it. So I don't know. That's what I got.
No, that's beautiful. And you know what? This is going to segue me into what I like to do at the very end, because this is supposed to be all about the guest. If you could leave the people out there who may get a chance to listen to this at some point with one idea or one concept, however short, long, whatever you want it to be, what would you tell people to do, or what would you leave them with to maybe let them into that mentality a little bit, or just in general? Yeah. What would you leave people to keep them going or to get out and do those things?
I tattooed it on my wrist. Memento Mori from Marcus Aurelius in Meditations. It loosely translates to like, remember to die.
Okay.
Nothing matters. None of this stuff that we talk about, like all the stuff that you're worried about, none of it really matters. I mean, there's always going to be somebody, God forbid, sick or anything like that. But like all the shit you're stressed about, it doesn't matter. Go do something that you love, and that's it. You know what? It's every time I get pissed off, like you'll see me like staring at my wrist and taking a deep breath because it's like whatever I'm pissed off about, 100% doesn't matter. So keep that in mind. Enjoy everything. Otherwise, don't do it. That's it.
Beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. Well, I appreciate you coming on. This was too much fun. And if I hadn't worked out today, well, no, I still might go for a run today after all this.
Yeah, I still owe a second workout. I did 5 miles today, but I still have to do.
Oh, that's right. Got to do the 2 a day.
I still got to do another 45-minute workout. I got a nice little 500 body weight rep thing that I use as my backup for this when I'm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Well, thanks again. I'm gonna hit stop recording here and talk to you a little bit after the pre-show. Absolutely. But yeah, thanks again.
Hey, anytime, man. Thanks for having me. I'm honored.
Cheers.
Yeah, buddy.